So, Jonathan, thank you for joining me today at the CEO show. I really appreciate you taking time out.
Thanks, Nick. It's my pleasure. It's great to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. I see coffee at your background, and I feel like I need to get a coffee rather than the shake that I just had, the veggie shake.
Well, it's the new superfood, so it's good for you.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you. You know, our audience primarily is CEOs of growing companies or P&L leaders of growing companies, mostly tend to be entrepreneurs. And so the concept of innovation is really, really central to entrepreneurship, as you probably already know. And when I looked at your background, I said, I got to talk with Jonathan because you've done something which is central to most of the research talks about cross-pollination as the driver of innovation. I mean, you look at, and I've got some examples, kidney dialysis, implantable pacemakers, LASIK surgeries, digital imaging, athletic shoes. All of these products did not come from commercialization of entrepreneurial ventures. They came from NASA. Mm-hmm. And so the reason they came from NASA is, again, cross-pollination, and something developed there, and then it was brought over. And we find that the disruptive innovation, the truly groundbreaking innovation, actually doesn't happen when people are alike. Innovation does happen when you put a lot of people of the same kind together, but it's less breakthrough innovation, more incremental innovation, more like making a better buggy whip. Right. And your background is what I would call a cross-pollination. You came from winery and into coffee. Mm-hmm. Also, the depth of experience we found from research is that the depth of experience people have in a given silo or an industry, that deeply affects the innovation in another sector if they are cross-pollinated. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we still find that most companies, when they think of hiring people, is like, what's your experience? Can you do this? Have you done it before? And if there's a continuum, we'll hire you. Otherwise, they don't see a fit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I wanted to get into the depth of it from you. How did you come from winery to coffee making and then actually made it a grand success?
Well, it's been an interesting path, but I think rooted in it is what you were just commenting on, is the orientation to how to think in a creative context, how to be more about the gray space. And honestly, I have to give a lot of attribution to my liberal arts education, which was here in Florida at a small school in Sarasota called New College. And not only did I learn about aesthetics and philosophy and literature and things of that sort, and then went on to 2 graduate degrees that are very siloed, in hotel administration at Cornell and New York University Business School. But those skills get old. But what I learned at New College was how to think. And when I was finishing my thesis, even there, I was working in a restaurant. I'd become very involved in a luxury European restaurant, which is where I learned about wine early on in the heyday of the 70s. And when you had Robert Mondavi and Joseph Phelps just coming to market, and great classic vintages out of Europe for the 71, 75, 76 German vintages, which were some of the best in the century. And that was my baptism into wine. And so I'm talking to my thesis sponsors at New College, and they said, well, why don't you write your thesis that integrates aesthetics with what you love, wine and food? So I wrote it on how wine and food can elevate from craft to art. And it gave me that foundational love of the business and love of education, both, that has kept me going for many years, to say, make it more than it can be. It doesn't have to be craft. It can elevate to an aesthetic experience, and treat food and wine or beverage that way. And people want that. They want to have aha experiences in their life. We all go to restaurants for refueling, but when we go to a place and we find ourselves coming back to the office or home saying, God, guess what I had today? Guess what glass of wine I had? Guess what dish I had? Guess what cup of coffee I had? That's a tremendous gift we can give consumers. So that orientation started very early. And wine is really a natural migration from, coffee is a natural migration from wine in that it's another agricultural business, very Appalachian centered. It's been mistreated. Because of the scale of the coffee industry, it stayed in a commodity mode for far longer than it needed to. And here's some examples of that. If you and I went to Baskin-Robbins ice cream parlor and we'd see this array of 76 flavors of ice cream, and they said to us, "That's great, Nick, nice to see you today. You can have butter pecan. That's it. That's what we're serving. It's the churn of the day." Well, that's what happens at a coffee shop. You get the brew of the day. Very commoditized, take it or leave it, not made to order, made in a batch. And we said, well, why does it have to be that way? Wine has evolved. We went from wine bottles to house wine. Then house wine went to wines by the glass. And then wine by the glass has evolved to many wines by the glass, where the consumer today expects a half a glass option, a glass, a Cortino. I want to have 20, 30 choices. I want them to be old world, new world, many varietals. And then we say, that's great. And we see that in craft beer. We see it in tea. But coffee, you have a stumbling block. You say most people wouldn't know the ability to name 3 varietal coffees. So what we've done is take those principles of both hospitality, the love of the customer, the restaurant dynamic of dining, and wine, and bring it into coffee. In our stores, we micro roast coffees every day, so celebrating small batch coffees. Here's a small example of it. This is a micro roast coffee from a very large producer, though prestigious one, called Da Terra in Brazil. But it is from one of what they call their nano roasts, nano farms. It's only 200 pounds of this coffee made in the world, and we own 100 pounds of it. So now, much like a great Burgundy wine, we can celebrate scarcity and the luxury of scarcity, the luxury of an experience that I can't get up the street, and also made to order. It's hand signed by our roaster that day. This was roasted on 11/6, just a few days ago, and so indeed, you can bring products to coffee and experience that are like small batch wine production of single vineyards can be brought into coffee. We allow the customer to brew 40 coffees every day to order. Again, back to Baskin-Robbins. Which would you like? Go on the adventure. Let me help you there. And they can interact with our baristas and have that experience. And over 40% of our customers, rather than take the brew of the day, because they're in a hurry, will upgrade and take a $3 to $6 cup of coffee that they have to wait 3 to 5 minutes for, and they will cherish this experience. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to add that care and love around coffee that we've seen exemplified in specialty foods and certainly in wine.
And you said a few things that caught my attention. One of them was your training in liberal arts, and I have a background in arts as well, but besides that I also have in statistics. And what I found is the ability to combine systems engineering with psychology with statistics produced a methodology called structural equations model. And when I combined it with certain things in education productivity, I got a green card from the U.S. government under the National Interest Waiver Program that is so special that we want you to be in the U.S. and we'll give you a green card within 50 days, as opposed to people typically waiting for years and years and being sponsored by one company or the other. So when you make yourself that special, Steve Jobs is a great example. He took his design classes and you talked about your liberal arts. Yep. So the thing is, taking to the next comment that you made about commodities, most people think in terms of here's what I make and here's what I will sell. We're in coffee business, then you sell coffee. We are in widget business and we sell widgets. But the truth is, the commodity is the core product. It's what you embellish it with that helps you differentiate. And most of the companies, most of the entrepreneurs, just because of the very nature of it, they like certain things, they do certain things well, they get kind of narrow-minded and they get stuck in that line of thinking. And therefore, their products are not as well differentiated, as well what we might call a whole product solution, where you don't only have your core commodity product, but that's just one element of the entire solution or experience in your case that you offer to the customer. I mean, coffee is caffeine.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. It has fundamental attributes. And I think your comment about Stephen Jobs as an example is someone who never wanted his customer to think that they were buying a computer. It wasn't about the computer. It was about its satisfaction of desires and wants. And so when he made a better PC, then he made a better laptop, and then a better, of course, iPod, and then the iPhone and the iPad. And to your point earlier, these weren't brand new technologies. There was MP3 players, there was Discman, there was tablet technology, but he reinvented it in the context of the consumer rather than about the product's rooted guts. And a good example of that in the coffee business is the Green Mountain Company, where they introduced the K-Cup, for the Keurig brewers. So now you're introducing convenience and personal choice into the coffee dynamic. And you're also being respectful of a demographic change of more singles living alone, more dual income, very busy, hyper-scheduled people who might want their own personal decisions, aging populations who are alone in the house and don't want a whole pot of coffee. And it became a multi-billion-dollar segregated piece of business. The good news for us is many of their patents have expired, and so now others like us and Pete's and other great companies can get into that space. But we're taking that too a step further. To your point, we have a new product that we just launched last year, and it untethers you from the machine. Just like when we used to say, "Hey, I have to go back to my office and check my email," and the email was amazing, but I still had to go back and be hardwired into my PC. Well, today that would be unacceptable. Today I want it on my smartphone. But we came up with a product, we call it Brew Sticks, that are liquid coffee concentrate, cold brewed, so they're all natural, no sugar, perfectly made, all real coffee, and allow the guest to put that into hot or cold water instantly without a machine. So there's no brewing going on whatsoever. Excellent. And you say, well, is this fake? Is this like old instant coffee? And we say, no, it's actually steeped slowly for 24 hours, just the way you would make a maceration of grapes to make fine wine juice, the way you would make sun tea, in a warm climate. You put it outside, you're going to get a better extraction. Yeah. So that's a new product that we think will revolutionize the instant coffee space and the single cup space by adding, in addition to choice and convenience, now flexibility of use and mobility. And those are the kinds of ways I think we all have to think, good or bad, whether it works or not. We'll see.
Well, the important thing is this, that, when you take a box of salt from a grocery store, how many ways can you describe it? You call it it's a salt, and undifferentiated from anything else, maybe the iodized version versus non-iodized. So when you look at what you just described and you say, let me list the attributes of this particular product, or shall we say product experience, because it's not just about product anymore. Product is a bad definition of what you just described. It's a complete experience, and ultimately life is about experiencing, and therefore everything related to life is experience. So if we look at our products as enterprise, in a way, the way we would describe an experience for a consumer, you would have attributions after attributions. I mean, the more the merrier, the granular the differentiation, and the more, shall we say, culturally nuanced the solution. I mean, look at wine, and somebody who experiences wine, who's aware of different varieties of wine, they can differentiate so much more than somebody who is wine blind. I mean, yes. And so in that sense, that's very important. That's where I wanted to get at the idea of innovation. And I know you were saying something, so let you complete that.
Well, the thought there is you have to do both, I think. The layered features, the layered complexity. There's an aesthetic principle that used to talk about, I believe it was Beardsley, a UK writer, and it was unity, complexity, and intensity. And we said, this is about art. This was a thesis he had around art. And I use this all the time around wine. Is it unified? Is it well made? Is it balanced? Is it what I expect it to be? Is there complexity? Are there layers of flavors before the fundamental ones? And I will pay for that. I will have a more enriched experience. And then is there complexity at the end? Or rather intensity at the end, meaning there's a sort of, wow, what was that? I got to get back into that glass. It's like something really intoxicating, slightly sensual that's just mind altering. And now that becomes from a $5 bottle to a 15 to a 50. Is that